Malcolm Gladwell's Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking explores the concept of thin slicing, the ability of the brain to make quick, yet surprisingly accurate judgments with minimal information. Gladwell delves into the science behind snap decisions and unconscious thinking, illustrating how these rapid judgments can be more effective than decisions made with careful analysis. The book challenges the traditional notion that thoughtful decision-making requires deliberate, conscious effort, and instead presents the argument that intuitive decisions, when honed and informed, can be incredibly powerful and accurate. The book opens with an intriguing case of art experts who were able to instantly identify a forged statue as fake, despite not being able to explain how they knew. This example serves as an entry point for Gladwell to introduce the idea of thin slicing, the ability of the brain to filter and process vast amounts of information in a fraction of a second. Gladwell argues that these snap judgments are not necessarily the result of luck or instinct, but of accumulated knowledge and experience that manifests in unconscious decision-making. These experts didn't consciously analyze every detail of the statue, but their experience had trained them to recognize patterns in the artwork that signaled something was off. Gladwell builds on this idea by introducing the concept of adaptive unconscious, a part of the brain that works behind the scenes, processing information and making decisions without the individual being fully aware of it. The adaptive unconscious is responsible for the quick decisions we make every day, from choosing a route while driving to deciding who to trust in a split-second interaction. Gladwell draws from a range of studies and real-life examples to demonstrate how these unconscious processes can sometimes outperform rational, deliberate thinking. One of the central themes of Blink is the idea that rapid cognition, thinking that occurs in the blink of an eye, can be surprisingly accurate. Gladwell cites a study in which people were able to accurately predict the success of a marriage based on observing a couple for just a few minutes. In these cases, the brain is not just making wild guesses, it is drawing from an unconscious database of prior experiences and knowledge, allowing for quick yet reliable decisions. The book argues that this rapid cognition is a powerful tool that allows us to navigate the world more efficiently, particularly when the stakes are high or time is limited. However, Gladwell also explores the darker side of thin slicing, particularly when it goes awry. He discusses the role of bias and prejudice in snap decisions, illustrating how unconscious attitudes can skew our perceptions and lead to poor judgments. For example, Gladwell examines the case of police officers who, in high-stress situations, made split-second decisions that were influenced by racial bias, resulting in tragic consequences. These biased decisions are the result of cultural conditioning and past experiences, which shape our unconscious thinking in ways we are often unaware of. Gladwell points out that while the adaptive unconscious can be a powerful tool, it can also be easily corrupted by stereotypes and prejudices, leading to decisions that reinforce social inequalities. Gladwell's exploration of bias is particularly compelling in his discussion of the famous IAT, implicit association test, a psychological tool designed to uncover implicit biases. He presents studies that show how even well-intentioned individuals can harbor biases they are unaware of, influencing their decisions in ways that are at odds with their conscious beliefs. This exploration of unconscious bias is one of the most thought-provoking parts of Blink, as it highlights the complexity of decision-making and the ways in which our minds can be influenced by factors outside of our awareness. Another important aspect of Blink is the concept of the power of first impressions. Gladwell highlights the fact that first impressions often turn out to be surprisingly accurate, especially when the person making the judgment has experience in the relevant field. For instance, in the book, he discusses how expert critics in music and art are able to form accurate judgments about a performance or a work of art almost immediately. These initial judgments, often based on very little information, are remarkably consistent with more thorough, deliberate evaluations. Gladwell uses this concept to suggest that when we trust our instincts and don't second-guess ourselves, we are often tapping into deep wells of unconscious knowledge and expertise that can lead to better outcomes. However, Gladwell does not argue that all quick decisions are necessarily good decisions. He highlights cases where thin slicing can lead to mistakes, particularly when the decision-maker lacks sufficient experience or when the decision is based on incomplete or misleading information. He introduces the concept of the paradox of the right answer, the idea that sometimes the most accurate decision is not the one that is most easily understood or rationalized. In other words, rapid cognition can be effective when it is informed by experience and expertise, but it can also be flawed when the decision-maker is uninformed or misled. Gladwell cites the example of a psychologist named John Gottman, who, based on just a few minutes of watching a couple interact, can predict with startling accuracy whether they will stay together or divorce. This ability to make accurate judgments with very little information is rooted in experience and pattern recognition, not gut feelings or superstition. Gladwell's writing is punctuated with numerous examples that illustrate the power and pitfalls of thin slicing. One such example is the story of a basketball coach who, after observing just a few minutes of practice, was able to predict with remarkable accuracy which players would perform well in a game. In this case, the coach's ability to recognize patterns in the player's behavior during practice was informed by years of experience, allowing him to make snap decisions that others might have dismissed as arbitrary. The book also delves into the impact of external factors on snap judgments. Gladwell discusses how environmental cues, such as body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions, can influence our perceptions of others in ways that are not always conscious. He describes an experiment in which people were able to predict the competence of a person based solely on a brief video clip of them speaking. This highlights how much of our decision-making is based on cues that we are not always aware of, and how those cues can sometimes be misleading. Gladwell concludes by emphasizing the need for balance between intuitive decision-making and rational thought. He advocates for a more nuanced understanding of decision-making that acknowledges both the power and limitations of snap judgments. While rapid cognition can be incredibly useful, it is important to recognize when it is appropriate and when it might lead to errors. Gladwell encourages readers to trust their instincts but to also be mindful of their biases and the contexts in which they are making decisions. In summary, Blink offers a fascinating exploration of how our minds work when making quick judgments, illustrating both the power and potential dangers of rapid cognition. Through compelling examples and a deep dive into the science of the subconscious, Gladwell argues that unconscious thinking can be more accurate than we often realize, but it can also be influenced by biases and external factors that skew our perceptions. The book challenges readers to rethink how they make decisions and to appreciate the complexity of the subconscious mind in shaping their choices. Ultimately, Blink is a celebration of the mind's ability to process vast amounts of information quickly and effectively, while also urging caution in recognizing when such judgments can go wrong.